Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5am Club. I'm just doing a bushwalk here at home in my local government area. It's still shut down, so I can't go outside my LGA at the moment. So I'm restricted to the 5 kilometre as the crow flies, I think it's called, restrictions. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going on a walk in the bushland close to my home, and there's a track called the Pelalmway loop, which goes through Northmead and snakes around through Winston Hills. And it's about a 2-hour walk, so I'm about 1 hour, 1.25 hours into it. I've done 3 book summaries already, but I'll just do one more or a couple more. We'll see how we go. What I've chosen to do on this summary is to review a book and to summarise a book entitled In Search of Excellence from Tom Peters. I remember when I was working for IBM in the mid-80s, when IBM was the most respected and most revered company in the world during its heyday, when it was probably the best employer in the world. I actually have worked for a number of outstanding organisations, and IBM is without doubt probably the best organisation that I worked for, a US-based multinational, but it was an awesome work environment which enabled me to grow and develop from my mid-20s through to my early 30s, and provide me with a lot of skills and a lot of wonderful experiences that I've carried through my work career. I remember in the early days when I joined, probably a year into my career, one of the senior executives, I forget who it was, but it could have been Gary Webb, who was the Chief Financial Officer, but I'm not entirely sure. My memory's not entirely clear about who recommended that we read this, but he basically gave an edict to his team saying that he wanted everyone in his team to read this book from Tom Peters. It had only just been, published. He may have done an MBA or heard about it through his friends, or obviously he'd read it himself, but he wanted everybody in the company to read this book, In Search of Excellence, which was probably one of the leading texts from the mid-80s, and basically set a standard and a benchmark for all the best companies in the world back at that point in time. Come on through, love. Back at that point in time.
Thank you.
No worries, love. So one of the key lessons from this book is that many of the innovative companies, according to the author Tom Peters, many of the innovative companies got their best business product ideas from their customers. How you going, mate? Yeah, got their best business ideas from their customers, which is a powerful sort of lesson. And IBM was one of those organisations that was leading the charge in terms of innovation back in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, you name it. IBM was investing hundreds of millions of dollars in R&D, research and development. And what we're saying here from Tom Peters is that some of the best product ideas come from customers. And in order to get these ideas from your customers, the author here is saying that it comes from listening intently and regularly. So having a very good, strong and intimate relationship with your clients, your customers. And he got this by interviewing a number of the top companies. So Tom Peters interviewed a number of key organisations, and from those interviews he was able to glean that the best thing that an employer, the best thing that a leader, an organisation can do is to have a good, strong working relationship with customers, because it's through that relationship, through listening to your customers, through working with your customers, that you can get the edge on your competition. Because at the end of the day, it's all about satisfying customer needs that make you relevant to the customers. So through his interviews in 1982, he came up with the point that top companies consistently focus on their customers, and customer satisfaction is key, customer satisfaction is king. And the term that we used back then, which came from this book, I remember, was that it's important to be able to delight your customer. Not just to sell to them, just not to do something with them, but to delight them, to win their heart and minds. Because a customer is not just another annoyance. A customer needs to be the centerpiece of your business, according to the author. So Tom Peters here writes that we need to have an organisation that has a strong attitude of service, because it's only through customer service that allows you to thrive. And once you thrive, then you can survive to come another day. So the key point coming out of this was that we need to resolve issues quickly. We need to resolve customer issues quickly. We need to focus on the needs, not the numbers. Product improvement is an incremental quality process. So to become the best in the world at what you do, you need to focus on clients, according to Tom Peters, and to incrementally improve your product step by step, making sure that along the way you are not leaving your customers high and dry, and you're focusing on their needs and focusing on customer quality and customer satisfaction. So the next point that comes out of Tom Peters' book is that in order to search for excellence, you need to focus on customers, focus on their needs, work with customers, delight customers, and to have a service attitude, a customer service attitude, and to delight, as we said before, the customers and win their hearts and minds. But in order to do this, you just don't decree it. You just don't say it and it happens. What you need to do is you need to make your employees come first as well. Because employees that have skills, that have great leadership, who have had people working with them to build their skills, are the ones who are going to be the very, very best at what they do. So it's all about having respect for the individual, investing in your employees in terms of their education, their growth, their development, helping them become better at what they do. All of these things are some of the lessons that Tom Peters talks about. And the whole concept of raising your expectations in terms of your team is one of those things that generates a culture, a winning culture in an organisation. So I remember when I was working at IBM that my manager would always talk about my growth and my development as opposed to the organisation's growth and development. So it always made me feel as if I was number one And by me being number one, I would also put the organisation at number one, because you just felt compelled to give back to the people who gave to you. So it wasn't only just salary, it was recommending books to read, it was sending me on courses, and it was tailoring my development, my growth and development to my particular needs, my desires. How far did I want to go in the organisation? Did I want to become the managing director? Did I want to just become a first line manager? Did I just want to stay as a professional and not become management? So regardless of what you wanted to do, the organisation would respect that and would tailor your growth and development, your plan, your development plan to your needs. You'd sit down with your manager, you'd map it out, and then throughout the year you would sit together and just tick off the things that you've done, the things that you haven't done, and the things that you needed to do. So it was a partnership in each other's growth and development, where IBM invested in me and I invested in my employer. So the author here, Tom Peters, makes a very important point, that we need to be careful that we don't just give lip service to development. Don't give lip service to just customers. We don't give lip service to employees. How many times have you heard different organisations just give lip service to things and not follow through? It's important that each and every organisation, whatever it says, it follows through, and it does. So that's another point that came out of this book. So the last point that came out of Tom Peters' book, out of the 3 key points, is that you need to have training programs in place, and that those training programs need to have clear and inspiring values. And the organisation needs to have values that empowers excellence in the business world. So everything needs to be aligned. So the work, the goals, the values, everything needs to be aligned in a way which is not just lip service, but actually the organisation invests in what it says and it does what it says. And not only that, according to the author, we need to continually review and measure against the values that we have, and to make sure that they're still relevant and we're still on track. Now we need to ask ourselves, do our values inspire values in others? Are they guiding principles? And the worst thing we can do, and I've seen this time and time again, the worst thing is to work in a business or to work for an organisation that simply focuses on the numbers, the short-term numbers. Because what happens then is that the organisation loses track. It may be successful year 1, may be successful quarter 2, but over 5 years, 10 years, the organisation has lost its way, and all it's become is a number generating exercise. So we need to focus on the broader, the deeper aspects of business, and build a family, build a reputation, build a brand that people can understand, they can relate to it, and they can work towards achieving the outcomes that I guess are joint outcomes that benefit everybody. So I guess that's about it. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club. Took me back a number of years there, because the last time I read the book In Search of Excellence from Tom Peters was back in the early mid-80s. Would have been probably 86. I would have read it, 86. And I did work for an organisation that lived and breathed, back then at least, it lived and breathed the ethos of customer service and employee development, where your manager was the person who was helping you grow and develop. So there was a partner. I did have partners in my growth and development, some better than others, but at least you got honest feedback, and at least you got people who were in the business for many, many years, who could give you an honest assessment in terms of how you were tracking and whether or not you did have what it took to make it in the big corporate environment of IBM. So thanks for joining me, and we'll chat again. I've just come down to the bridge here at, I think it's called Riley's Road. And as you can hear the cars going overhead. And what I'll do is I'll continue my bushwalk right through to the other end and then come back, because I've just got my car parked just above where I am at the moment. So we'll continue. I'll probably do another book summary along the way. Don't know what it'll be, but we'll see what it is. And once again, thank you for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5am Club. It's springtime. It's a time of year where we're still locked up because of COVID-19. But the good news is that first jabs across New South Wales are almost sitting at 85%. And I remember saying a number of months ago that I wasn't quite confident that Australia was going to get to the 70% or the 80%. But it just goes to show that once Australians, I guess, see the way forward, they quickly get on board, and as a country we unite and we work together for a shared outcome. So congratulations, Australia. Congratulations, New South Wales, on getting that first jab up to 85%. And just the thought that there are other countries who had an advantage on us, who started well before us. Greece, for example, Israel, so many other countries started well before we did. And yet Australia is no doubt going to be one of the highest ranking countries in the world according to COVID-19 vaccination rates. So they call it the lucky country for a number of reasons. But I also want to acknowledge to all those anti-vaxxers who were poisoning people's minds over the year and a half, with all their misinformation and disinformation. I told you back then, and I told you back then very, very clearly, that you were going to be the minority, and that your voice and your concerns were going to be an insignificant distraction. So thank God people have seen the light. Thank God that the government has made available the vaccines. It's been a fantastic rollout program. As I said, even though it started with a lot of anti-vax and a lot of challenges, we're coming home with a very, very strong sail. So take care, Yassas, and we'll chat again. Bye for now.